We really gonna do this?
Can't change our ways now.
This is our first press car from Ferrari. You know they're never gonna give us a press car ever again, right?
You don't know that.
You're watching Throttle House. I'm Thomas.
And I'm James.
And we have a problem.
Yeah, we've got lots of problems.
That's true.
Lots.
Today's problem is we're trying to figure out is if you're really ridiculously good looking, is life easier for you? Are things handed to you on a silver platter? And is that okay?
And as a result of that, are you missing things? Without the adversity, maybe there's no growth. Are you all appearance and no character?
Take, for example, the Ferrari Roma. It's got a Ferrari badge, and it is really ridiculously good looking. So...
Why don't you just show them what you mean?
Okay. Let's take Chris Pratt, for example. When he started, he was Andy, Parks and Rec, lived in a pit, wasn't exactly the most attractive gentleman in the world, but he was funny and lovable. And as a result, everyone started to love Chris Pratt. Now, Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, he's a hero and he's funny. So you see, he's kind of got the whole thing as a result of not looking like Chris Pratt looks right now for his whole life. The problem is, we live in a world, whether you like it or not, where you can become world famous on TikTok or Instagram, literally just by being good looking. I guess what we're asking then is this Ferrari Roma kind of like Chris Pratt? Or is it just a pretty face? If you're new to Throttle House, we do car reviews, track tests, and quite a lot of messing around. So subscribe and hit the bell. Let's start in here. There's lots to talk about. Okay, every single thing is a capacitive touch button. There's no physical buttons anywhere, but there's no haptic feedback, and there's no physical click to it, so you don't really know, you're not confident when you've actually selected anything, including the mirror adjustment. Try doing that on the fly, you'll get in an accident. For example, the engine start-stop button is not a physical button, it's just a little screen, which kind of robs some of the drama from it. I want to push that big red start-stop button, or like in a Lamborghini, you're like a fighter pilot, you flip up the thing and you launch a missile. And maybe that would be okay. Still probably not, if there wasn't a 2-second delay minimum to any input you give it. Even the fact that there's a little physical wheel on the back of the steering wheel for the volume, because you can't use this screen over here for that, that would be idiotic. Even with the volume wheel on the back of the steering wheel, there's still a delay. Another thing is that the turn signal buttons are on the steering wheel. And like they are on all Ferraris, it's not actually that big of a deal. I got used to it, but the problem is that using my stubby little Trump thumbs, when I select the left one, I accidentally hit the capacitive touch button for the voice control. It will inevitably interrupt you. It's really loud. And then it's not easy to make it go away either. This new screen, by the way, is brand new. Ferrari's implemented it in all of their cars, and it's visually fantastic. I love what it looks like, and you get this big yellow Ferrari tack. Until you plug in Apple CarPlay, which covers the entire screen. And then you don't get to see your TAC and CarPlay at the same time. And if you want to navigate CarPlay, by the way, you have to use this little touchpad, which is the slowest, most unusable thing I think I've ever used in a car. It's borderline dangerous to use on the highway. So if you want to see your TAC and have fun, you gotta hold this home button down for a second and then you have no idea where you are on your map. Which means that the only viable navigation that you have is the one that Ferrari provides over here, which, like all cars, is obviously crap. This screen, by the way, is on a weird slant. It doesn't look anything like that screen. It looks 5 years behind, and it is also laggy and not very intuitive. And then right below that is this little H-gate shifter homage, which is supposed to look like the old H-gate shifters from Ferraris back in the day, but the problem with it is that it's domed and chrome. So if the sun is in the sky, which it does do once a day, it will reflect into your eyes. Okay, so obviously I had a lot to say, but even with those issues, the Roma does have a moment past 7,000 RPM where the engine comes alive and you are reminded that you are in a Ferrari. You do have to use the paddles because the transmission has a pathological need to upshift regardless of what mode you're in. It's a very finicky dual clutch where sometimes it will roll back when sitting at a light and sometimes it will roll you forward like a torque converter. It has a mind of its own, but so does the car. It's occasionally a cruel mistress, but when you treat it right, it is a real Ferrari, especially from the outside. So before James had a go and promised to pretend that the electronics didn't exist, I pulled over so we could talk about the styling.
But it's so good looking.
Is that enough, James?
All right, we'll get to that in a bit.
Okay.
Let's just talk about the design a bit more. So this is quite controversial because it's missing some classic Ferrari things.
Yes.
Like the Ferraris, the recent Ferraris have had a vertical entrance for the headlight here.
Yeah.
This has just gone straight horizontal.
Yes.
And on the rears, we've lost the circular Ferrari taillights.
The taillights are weird. Yeah, they're like...
They're a bit strange.
Yeah.
But I think it is wonderful.
Yeah, okay, so all of those things aside, it all works. Not aside, as a package, this is like jaw-droppingly, like achingly good looking. Like the proportions are perfect.
Like, is there
the
a better
shape
car?
Is perfect.
Is there a better looking car on the road? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, but like I'd have to think about it.
People have their reservations about the grille.
Yeah.
Because Ferrari normally do those big black squares. This is more of a small
It's also body colored.
it's body color.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
on like things like white and stuff, it gets a bit too obvious. I think it's hidden here. I will say this is not the most exciting color. You can get the Roma in. And when we found
Yeah.
out we were getting it in blue Roma,
I was like, ooh!
it's BLU Roma.
Right, so we Googled it, and if you Google blue Roma,
And they showed that the stunning bright blue one.
it's literally, we found a blue Roma. It wasn't this blue Roma.
Yeah, this is closer to grey. I still like
Yes.
the spec, but it's
Yes.
closer to grey.
It's subtle.
Speaking of the grille, actually,
Yeah.
I watched a video by Frank Stevenson.
The designer did the MC12.
Did the McLaren P1
Yeah.
and the Ferrari F430.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
did a discussion on this. It was a great discussion, actually.
Yeah.
And he said that he would have preferred the grille in black, and he showed a render of it. And when
Yeah.
he did that, and it was on a red one, I was like, wow, that is just the Mazda RX vision.
Yeah, it does look like that, right?
Which, in defense of Ferrari, Mazda never actually made. It's very easy to make a drawing and post it online.
Yeah,
Actually,
this looks
they
like
did, sorry, they did make an RX vision, but
Yes.
it's not in production.
This looks like a concept car. It's like it's
It
just
does.
unbelievable.
Like you'd see this at a show and be like, oh, it will never look like that. It would never pass safety.
Yeah, exactly.
But then it does. So I thought that was
It's-
really interesting. And considering this is mostly, even though you've got your reservations,
Yeah.
this is mostly a dream for people. And Ferrari know that. So the configurator online, it's actually quite fun.
It is really cool.
There's a night mode,
Yeah.
it's got 360. It's
Yes.
not as good as Genesis. For some reason,
ridiculous.
Genesis has the best configurator. But this one is still really fun. It's still got those Gran Turismo vibes.
Yep.
As in like the game, not the Gran Tourer.
Well,
It has-
it does have those as
It
well
has
as
all
the
of
game.
Yes.
Has a mind of its own as
I
well.
upset it.
Yeah.
I compared it to a video game.
Okay, so this car is beautiful. We know that.
And just quickly pop the hood.
You want to see it?
It is
okay,
one
it
of
is.
the best looking V8 engines
It
we've
is.
seen.
It is really, really, really nice. Yeah.
All right. I've damaged my back.
He
So
has. Usually I'm the one with the bad back. He can't bend over.
I'm 29. This isn't supposed to happen.
Oh, look at
Yeah.
that.
This bit here looks like something that Morgan Freeman's character in Batman would
Yeah.
give Bruce Wayne.
Yes, it does.
That looks like a suit that can fly.
Yeah, it'll stop a bullet in a knife for sure, but maybe not a bullet.
Yeah.
That's what he said. So this car is beautiful. We know that.
Yeah.
Is that enough, James? Is it enough to be beautiful? Can you get by on your looks alone?
Don't ask me.
Yeah, well, not you. I mean, why don't you go see if this has a sense of humor?
All right. Okay, a sense of humor is great, and we'll get to that in a second, but this is a Grand Tourer. So, by our definition, that means it's got to have style, comfort, performance at speed. As long as you're not using any of the UI, which I agree is garbage, or going around a strip mall car park, this car can be brilliant. Now the first point, Style, subjective, but given how many looks this is getting while I'm driving on this on the road, I'm pretty sure it's got that down.
And then there's the speed. As far as Grand Tourers go, this one is pretty light. It weighs under 3,500 pounds. So, stick a 3.9 litre V8 with 612 horsepower and 561 pound-feet of torque up front going just to those rear wheels, it boogies.
And even though it's turbocharged, they've made it feel naturally aspirated, so you want to chase that magic dragon, the red line, which Ferrari knows is addictive. It's part of the addiction equation. It's why you want to drive. The other part of that equation is the sound that the car makes. It's not as sonorous as one would want it to be. Look at that, perfect use of the indicators. Didn't hit the voice command. It's fun on the upshift, but it just down low, it is just a bit boomy, it's a bit droney. A Maserati Gran Turismo, which is not a distant relation to this car, sounds a lot better. So does an LC500, and even something like an F-Type R has a bit more theatre going on. That's the other part of the Ferrari equation. The car is playful. Yes, it's a Grand Tourer, the ride is lovely, and it's refined on the highway, it's quite quiet. So you can drive this across the country, but if you want to play with it, it has that rear end play. I always get stuck with saying that. It will lose the tail, no problem. And because of how light it is and how quick the steering ratio is, it just feels so darty. It feels smaller than it is. And there is a bit more theatre going on because this is a $5,000 steering wheel, carbon fibre with LEDs. And if you don't option Apple CarPlay, because it does block everything and it's rubbish to use, you actually save $5,000 because CarPlay costs $5,000 in this car. Something that comes standard on base economy cars, Ferrari charges $5,000 for. But if you don't get that, then technically the $5,000 carbon fibre LED steering wheel is free. I'm not an accountant, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. You know, that is all Ferrari, and in a weird turn of events, Thomas and I have actually both lived with this car. Normally only one of us gets to live with it. And as much as he has his gripes with it, and they are all valid, I somehow still love this car. And you know, we talk about cars when they get to a certain price range, they need to also have some emotional connection with the driver. And as weird as it sounds, you know, something like the Turbo S, as good as it was, this is only 25% more, and we're obviously in a ridiculous level of price here, but it's only 25% more. And I would take this over a Turbo S every day of the week because of the way it makes me feel. Every time I get into it and I'm listening to music and I'm driving along and I'm watching people admire its looks, I feel like that one summer evening that's the perfect temperature and I'm dressed in the right clothes and I'm excited for the event, and you have that first drink, it's that feeling. It's the glorious summer evening feeling. And in the Turbo S, I just feel like I'm driving a really fast car. This makes me feel something, which for $300,000, it should. Before we picked this car up, I said to Thomas that my requirements for this car, already knowing how it looks, is it just has to be easy to drive and sound good on top of the looks. And it's not that easy at low speeds, but otherwise it's not challenging, and it sounds okay. So it isn't a clear win, but based on the way it makes me feel, you're sitting in the cockpit, looking over these arches and that beautiful design in front, the yellow gauge cluster in front of me if I haven't got CarPlay on, the lights flashing, it just works. It works for me. And that is beautiful. It doesn't have to work for everyone, but it works for me. And like, if you're someone that's bought into the idea, the erroneous idea, that a Porsche is a poor man's Ferrari, I at least don't mind the flip side of it, which is that this is a rich man's Porsche, because it does have so much charm. So for me, and for everyone that sees this car drive by or parked anywhere, the Roma is a huge success. No, it's not perfect, but nothing is. And I think that just based on looks alone, it would probably still get by.
No, it wouldn't. James, it's $300,000. It has to be more than just a pretty face.
Okay, but so you agree it's a pretty face?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and that it successfully pays homage to the 60s GT cars?
Yes,
but
definitely.
it's just flawed in a bunch of places.
Many places, yeah.
Okay, but by your definition, and this is what you say all the time, isn't the charm of Italian cars that they are great and that they are beautiful, and in spite of all their issues, we love them?
Yeah.
Okay, and by that measure, the Roma is a success.
Yeah. Right, so what we've learned then is that it's not what's on the inside that counts. It's what you look like. God, that's a bad message.
It's not great.
Yeah.
It's not great.
Okay then, maybe digging deeper isn't our thing, and perhaps one shouldn't with the Roma. Because, silly metaphors and jokes aside, as it stands, we think that the Ferrari Roma makes you feel as good as it looks.
Which is a win, because Ferrari isn't just about actually being in the driver's seat, it's about the wanderlust, the dream of cruising down the highway at sunset. No, the Roma isn't actually all that good in many ways, but seeing as Ferraris live rent-free inside most of our minds instead of in our garages, I guess that makes the Roma, by default, exactly what it was meant to be.
I'm in an automatic car. I'm rolling back in first gear, gaining speed. Why is that? Why is that? It doesn't do that last time. Last time it went forward in first gear. Why am I? Is this how it ends? This can't be how it ends.